across India, different universities and colleges. I myself spoke to at least 7 places, 7 talks online in 2 days, whether it is Darbhanga University or the JNU Alumni Association or IIT Kanpur. I had the fortune of addressing my to the audience there. So Swamiji's birthday is rightly called National Youth Day. If you look at Swamiji, he looks so young. And he passed away very young, 39 and a half. He passed away in 1902. And he had predicted it. He had said that I will not see my 40th year. It was well before he became well known. And there is something unique about Swamiji. First is when you look at him, we feel a sense of youthfulness, his wonderful pictures, particularly when he went to the Chicago Parliament of Religions. Some of the pictures taken there are available freely on online. So you will see Swamiji's that handsomeness, a kind of wonderful eyes. So those who had met him, they used to appreciate his extraordinary shape of his eyes and his voice. So these physical features apart, he was such a character, such a ocean of wisdom and qualities, which are all divine qualities. So naturally, he fits in very well for the youth. Now, when youth turn to Swamiji, there are a few things which they observe. First thing is that Swamiji was quite modern. So unlike many saints in India, Swamiji spoke in English, and though later days we have had some other respected gurus and monks speaking in English, but Swami is the first to address the Western audience in English. He was the first to take a message of India to the West. Again, you find not just speaking in English, his ideas are so very fresh. Pandit Nehru used to say, although his ideas far back in those days, the 50s, he used to say that it is old by 50 years, 60 years, but it is like as if they were spoken yesterday. It's so fresh. So there is a freshness in his teaching, freshness in his approach, in his language that attracts the youth, and rightly so. Swamiji's teachings are spread over 9 volumes in English. That's known as Swami Vivekananda's complete works. It contains the notes of his lectures, of his interview classes and interviews and letters and poems and reports in the newspaper. So it's in 9 volumes, which is a huge thing. And majority of it was delivered and therefore recorded in the West. So, but it's not that only in the West. In India also, when Swamiji returned, his Indian lectures, his conversations are full of insights, full of guidelines for us, all of us. In one place, in a jocular way or serious way, Swamiji said, my message will last 1500 years, which means it will take the humanity to digest the message for around 1500 years. Well, now we'll turn to Swamiji's teachings. Even before that, I will turn to his personality, because it's not just that he was a thinker. Of course, he was a thinker, but something more than a thinker. So a thinker may be a very good speaker. He could be a very good, he could articulate things very well. But that's one thing. How much he has been able to put into practice, that's another thing. We find in Swamiji both the qualities very well manifested. So you have Swamiji's life in a very short overview of his life. Swamiji was born in Kolkata. He was born in a fairly, upper class family, the Datta families. His father was a lawyer. He was a well-known person in the city. They had a large house. Interestingly, the house where Swamiji was born is called the ancestral house of Swami Vivekananda. And now it is a center of the Ramakrishna mission. It's around 15 years back. The then President of India, Abdul Kalam ji, inaugurated that after renovation. It took a long time to do that, but he was so very happy. And it was during his inauguration that Kalamji also referred to the famous incident which took place when Swamiji was traveling to the West. I'll come to that when I come to speaking about that incident. So Swamiji was born there in that family, and he had a very wonderful childhood. He was full of energy, full of ideas, and full of wanting to understand things by testing. So his detailed biography gives an idea actually of the kind of young boy he was and the young man he was. It was very important for us because it gives an idea that how he grew up to become Swami Vivekananda. So when he came of age, when he was around 19, he was seized with the idea of finding out what is the reality behind all realities. He became quite philosophical, quite philosophical. He started reading Western philosophers, and it was a very deep reading. He was extraordinary. He had a comprehension power. He had power of concentration. But all that reading did not satisfy him. It did give him some kind of intellectual satisfaction, but it did not satisfy deeply his heart. So he wanted to know, is there a God? Is there some reality called God, a transcendental reality? Has anyone seen it? With that idea, he started visiting famous men in Kolkata those days. Kolkata was the capital of India, unlike Delhi now. So it was full of very eminent people, whether it is Tagore family or some well-known speakers and thinkers. Swamiji asked them whether they had seen God, but he did not get any positive and very direct reply. So finally, through his own college teacher, he was studying in the college at that time. There was a Englishman, William Hastie. He suggested that Swamiji should visit Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, who lives in a temple garden. There is a number of rooms in that temple. There he lives. He's an extraordinary person, a very authentic person. You should visit him. So as a young boy of 19 or so, Swamiji went there. And the question that he asked him when he met him was, have you seen God? To his great surprise, he found that Sri Ramakrishna said, yes, I've seen God. Not only that, he said, not only I've seen it, you also can say it. But who wants God? People want things from God. They don't want God. So they want their things to be fulfilled, their desires to be fulfilled. Wanting God is a great stage in life. He was very impressed. Swamiji was very impressed, but he was also skeptical. So he did not like Sri Ramakrishna would enter into some kind of a trance. So he would say whether this person is normal that he enters into trance, or is he showing us? So all this a very logical mind was working there. He's asking questions from a Western perspective. So because that was his training, he had read the various Western philosophers. Finally, it went on and on for several years, nearly 6 years. He met Sri Ramakrishna in 1881 until his passing away in 1886. Sri Ramakrishna passed away in 1886. In those 6 years, there were a lot of tussles between them in a very healthy way. It was full of love. Sri Ramakrishna had an intense love for his student, and the student had intense love for his teacher. So he would ask him questions, then Sri Ramakrishna would sometimes, find them very irritating. Yet he would never lose his temper, and will say, "Wait, wait, time will show you." And it so happened that was the time when Swamiji was, he was blessed with many spiritual experiences. Meanwhile, his father passed away. The family was in very great strait, very difficult condition. But then Swamiji continued to be with his, his discipleship. He would off and on go to Sri Ramakrishna and then return home. Then after Sri Ramakrishna's demise in 1886 in Kolkata, he decided to take up a monastic life fully. So it was a great struggle to do that, because on one side was the family trouble, because father had passed away, there were legal issues, and the family was there. He had two brothers and sister and mother and a joint family. And there were legal cases which some of the people in the joint family had hosted. So it was a difficult time. So he would say, I get two visions before me: whether I should become a well known man of eminence and accomplishment in this world, or I would take to the life of a monk. Finally, he chose this life of a monk. And after passing away of Sri Ramakrishna, he was for some time in the first monastery of Ramakrishna order in Kolkata. Then, as if seized with a wanderlust, he started visiting different parts of India. He first went to Kashi, and he met some of the very well-known people of those days there, including the famous scholar Pramada Das Mitra and some saints like Trelanga Swami, etc. Then Swamiji went via Hathras in today's UP, and then to Delhi, in Rajasthan, various places in Rajasthan. Before that, he also went to Almora, and he tried to meditate in different caves in the Himalayas. But somehow some power will pull him up, as if there was some divine mission pending for him. He admits this several times. One thing about him, Sri Ramakrishna used to say that Narendranath, that was his name, Narendranath is not an ordinary boy, and he's an expert in meditation. If he wants to just concentrate his mind, he just can't do it. So he was always, his mind was running towards meditation. But some power was kind of pulling him. And the result was, he came to Almora. He also came to Haridwar. It's there that Swamiji had observed for the state of healthcare in those days in Haridwar, then in Rishikesh, then Uttarakhand was very bad. He used to see the monks, being not being attended, and they're dying roadside. So much later, he sent one of his disciples, Swami Kalyananandaji, to go and start that center. And there's a remarkable, beautiful book on that, how the ashram was started by him, and how he was criticized in the beginning for doing this work by the people, because monks means they would be, sitting and doing kind of giving upadesh or doing their meditation. This kind of social work was unthought of. But that's what difficulty they passed through. That was later stage. Then Swamiji came to Rajasthan. He met the kings there, number of kings there. And then he came to Maharashtra, Gujarat, then Maharashtra, then down to south, to Rameshwaram, different places. So all these 6 years, as if, he had lived with people of all classes, all strata of life. There were very learned people and very ignorant people, people who are very well-to-do, like kings. He was a guest of kings of several, in those days, Rajwadas. At least 10 kings he had met. And they were very deeply impressed with his scholarship. Khetri, the Raja of Khetri, Raja of Mysore, Raja of near Jamnagar, then the Raja of Rameshwaram, Ramanad Bhaskar Setupati. All that he went through. And then he also met, he mixed with villagers, with commoners, and he very acutely observed the whole India. He was an extraordinary observer. He observed things, and at the same time, he would be also reading the scriptures. He would be reading Upanishads. He will be carrying on his deep study of the scriptures as well, and meditation. So it was a very tough life of 6 years. Then he came to Kanyakumari. So Kanyakumari is at the a peninsula where three rivers, three great oceans meet. And there the temple of Mother Kanyakumari, as old as since Mahabharata time, the mother in the form of a Kanya. Then from there he spotted a rock inside the sea, a huge rock. Somehow he was deeply troubled inside by what he had seen throughout India. He had seen such a rich country in culturally and knowledge traditions, but full of poverty and oppression and all kinds of things, social evils. So he was very deeply disturbed. So that was a time when the Indian freedom movement had not really started. It was in a very small way. So Swamiji swam across the ocean and sat in that uh, big rock, and there meditated for 3 days. And it was not an ordinary mind meditating, extraordinary mind meditating. And he meditated on India. India had problems and solutions. India had past. And he came up with some solutions. One thing that he decided at the end of his Bharat meditation, if we might call it, he said that I will not be just giving myself only to meditation. I will work for the good of the people. So this is the first decision. Second, he said, I will carry the message of India to the West. It was a very historic decision. People could not even believe that a monk would go to America because we believed in some kind of old, one smriti is there. And there it is written that if you cross the ocean, you lose your jati, kalapani. So, but Swamiji was brave enough. He took a decision. He took the permission of Sharda Devi, Sri Ramakrishna's wife. And then finally, he came, he traveled by, all the arrangements were made by the devotees and also by the Raja of Khetri in Rajasthan. So in 1893, Swamiji traveled to West. So he got into a ship, and that is the story which Abdul Kalamji once referred to, and I'll refer here now. So the story is, of course, the ship went through Sri Lanka, Singapore, Malaysia, a bit of China, Japan. So between this period, Swamiji happened to meet Jamshedji Tata, who was traveling in that ship. And it's very interesting that Jamshedji was deeply impressed with Swamiji's ideas. Swamiji asked him where he was going. He told him he was going to buy some material for India, some kind of a import. Swamiji said, why don't we bring technology also from there? That was a new idea for him. He had only thought of bringing material, not technology. Then Swamiji further said, in India, we should start research institutes, which will make us sustainable and stand on our own feet. So some ideas which Jamshedji liked very much. So later on, Swamiji went to the West. He went to Vancouver and he went to Chicago and all that. But then later, around 2 or 3 years later, Jamshedji wrote a letter to Swami Vivekananda. And that letter's text is very much preserved in Jamshedpur, the Tata Museum. There it is written that he wrote to Swami Vivekananda saying that please recall our meeting on board the ship near Japan, and you had suggested like that. So I want to start a research institute in Bangalore. So I invite you to be its director. Of course, Swamiji he did not agree for that, but he gave all his blessings. And Swamiji passed away in 1902, but the struggle kept happening. Even Jamshedji passed away, Jamshedji's next people. So the Tata group gave around 30 lakh rupees in those days. And the Raja of Mysore gave around 300 acres of land. And after much struggle, the 2 or 3 of Western disciples, great contribution is there. Finally, Indian Institute of Sciences, Bangalore was started. So that was started by Swami Vivekananda's inspiration. It is there in the history book of the institute also. Well, Swamiji went to the West, and there it was a difficult time for him, very difficult time, because people had not seen a monk there. So somebody wearing a particular cloth, it was new to them, and he was also very much amazed at looking at the scientific development of the West. So that was to mark the 300, 400th year of the founding of America. So a big exhibition was being held in Chicago. And as part of that, there was this Parliament of Religions. So after much struggle, Swamiji spoke at the Parliament of Religions. We know that. In fact, how Swamiji reached that Parliament of Religions itself is a huge story. And there his big opening words were just 5 words, sisters and brothers of America. These words, we don't know what it contained. They simply revolutionized people, electrified them. Everyone, nearly 4,000 people in the hall, in the St. Columbian's Hall, they all stood up there and started clapping for nearly 2 to 3 minutes. So then Swamiji gave his famous speech. His speech was celebrated. Later on in recent years, we celebrated the 125th year of the Chicago speech. For a speech to be celebrated is a big thing. Well, so that was a very historic thing, and there Swamiji gave a very important message, which is true, which is very relevant for all of us. He said, don't think you are weak. Don't think you are small. Think that you are infinite energy within you. And that infinite energy is from your own being, yourself, what we call as Atman. So this, he quoted from the Shvetashvatara Upanishad, Shunvantu Vishwe Amritasya Putra. So listen ye all the children of immortality. So that was something new for many people who had not used to it at all. They always thought we were sinners, we were not good for anything, etc. So it was a big applause and a big, Swamiji gave nearly 8 lectures in the Parliament of Religions. It was not recorded, in an electronic form. Of course, digital was not existing at that time. But they have been written down. The small lectures, except one lecture is a very big lecture. It's called a paper on Hinduism. It's like an overview of the whole Hinduism. Then later on, Swamiji went around the country, whole of America, nearly visiting more than 100 cities. And he spoke about India. There was a big issue related to the type of image which some of the missionaries had created about India. It was a very negative image. So Swamiji had to face lot of oppositions also. Finally, after 4 years, he returned to India. On the way, he visited England twice. He visited France. He also met Nicholas Tesla. And there are some other important people whom he met in the West at that time. And when he came to India in 1897, he was given a hero's welcome. And Swamiji came via South India to Kolkata and then went further right up till Lahore. Then he also went to Almora. So those lectures of Swamiji given during this travel, they are known as lectures from Colombo to Almora. They are a very historic document, because Swamiji has given a very great overview of Indian culture, history, a lot of intricate issues related to our Shastras. All that you will find, the caste system and how people have to come up in life, all that you find. So there's no wonder that during the freedom struggle, 100 years back or so, most people would carry a copy of this book with them. That was something that speaks of the quality of those lectures. And later on in 1897, Swamiji founded the Ramakrishna Mission. So now Ramakrishna Mission is 125 years old. It started with a single branch in Kolkata. As Rajeev ji was telling that let us begin with a small 1 or 2 members, then we can grow. So it was a 1 branch and then became 2 branch, 3 branch. And in last 100 years, it has expanded. Now the Ramakrishna Mission has got nearly 230 branches. It is spread over in India. There are around 170 branches. And remaining are around 25 or 26 countries. So those different, like in US, we have maximum number of centers, maybe 14 centers we have. Then you have one in Switzerland and in France, and then they're basically known as Vedanta centers, not Ramakrishna Mission centers, but Vedanta centers. So that is how it has, evolved there. So Swamiji founded that in 1897, and then he, after a year or two, he went to the West for a second time for a couple of months, just to, have a second sea voyage, which would be good for the health. And then he went to England and the San Francisco Bay Area and returned. In 1902, he passed away in Belur Mutt. So Belur Mutt is right on the banks of Ganga. Interestingly, last year or last year, for the National Youth Day, suddenly our Prime Minister ji, Modi ji, suddenly came there and he addressed the gathering there, and he stayed overnight in the Belur Mutt. And by the by, Mahatma Gandhi came to Belur Mutt once in 1921. He wanted to visit the room where Swamiji had stayed. So that room is still preserved as a living place. It's not just some exhibition. It is as if Swamiji is living there. So this is the story of Swami Vivekananda's life. Now about his message. Of course, I have spoken about his message. Let me elaborate on his idea of nation building through character building. So nation building, of course, we know there is a material side of the nation building, which is very vital. Infrastructure development and growth in social institutions, and you have educational growth, research institutes. We have different levels at which the nation is building up. Beautiful roads. It's all coming up very well. But then, is that all about life or all about a nation? Real nation is, or nation growth happens when people are happy. And that happiness, according to our great, spiritual tradition, can come only if your own character is on right term. What's the use of having a big infrastructure and people are given to all kinds of vices, drugs and violence and all kinds of things? It means somewhere miss the bus. We have somewhere missed the bus. We think that external development is all about it. So Swami Vivekananda wanted his internal development as well as in external development. Even in the West, when he went to the West, he said that I'm not just here to, receive some help from the West. I'm here to give something to the West. So it was like an exchange program. So I'll give the Indian spiritual tradition and its ideas to the West. And it has happened, in last 100 years, so many things have happened. Now in the West, we have many temples and gurus and spiritual things are coming up. And in India, Swamiji wanted that education should become not only a means for earning money to stand on your feet, which is very important, but it should also build up your character. So what is character building? We'll come to that. One thing which I liked very much about Swamiji's idea of saying this, he says, education is not the amount of information that is put into your brain, which writes all your life, undigested, unassimilated. It should be a character making assimilation of ideas. So we should be able to assimilate ideas. A person who has assimilated a few ideas, let's say 5 ideas, let's say 5 idea of truthfulness, idea of faith in oneself, etc. He is more educated than somebody who has a whole memory of a library with him, but he has no developed his inner life. So it's very important that we develop our character, we develop our personality in a real sense, not just external form of the personality, which is having its own importance. So let me say a few words about what is that nation building through character building. Swamiji would say, just by passing more laws in the parliament, a nation is not built. So it doesn't mean that you don't need to pass the bills. You have to pass the bills wherever required. But what's more important is to build up human beings. He said, men, these are wanted. But we want strong and vigorous human beings. This is a problem for human capital everywhere. Whatever be our institute, money and infrastructure, they are all dead in themselves. It is the human beings who give value to it. So we are in Vedantic tradition. It said there is an object and there is a subject. The object in itself cannot bring us happiness. There has to be a subject, and how the subject looks at the object, that makes the difference. What seems to give us happiness now may become a source of misery soon. So it's not just the object, but the growth of a subject, which means the person who is handling it. That's very important. So this self-development. The other day I was speaking to a professor from IIT Madras. He was reading a book on what we call as Brahma Sutras, which deals about the profoundest uh, dimensions of the human personality. And he said, what a remarkable, clear exposition of what we are, what we human beings are. Today's positive psychology and present approach to the psychology is quite close to it, but it's still not reached that deepest dimension of our being. Now, when we speak of character building, what is character? Character, we all know, is a bundle of mental patterns or habits which we all inherit because we do something over and again, over and again. So there's a famous quote which says, whatever you think, you will be. So if you think good thoughts, those thoughts will become your thought patterns. Those thought patterns will become your habits. And those habits will determine how your character is formed. So let us take care of our thoughts. What kind of thoughts we think? Do we think of positive thoughts? Do we think of negative thoughts? This is a question which we as human beings alone can ask. Other living beings can't ask this kind of self-questioning. They don't have self-awareness. They have awareness, but not self-awareness as much as we have. The nearest perhaps are chimpanzee, who have got some kind of very small level of self-awareness. So we as human beings are uniquely equipped to ask this question. What's the purpose of life? Why am I doing this? So this all will give us a new direction to life. So character basically means that I must think healthy, pure thoughts, emotions. I must cultivate them. So, there is a famous prayer from the Upanishads which says, Bhadram karnebhi shrunuyama deva, Bhadram pashyamakshabhirayajatra. May I hear what is good and may I see what is good. Which means I must select, I must make a choice. Whatever comes before me, I don't have I'm not helpless about it. I can change, I can take that which is good for me. So I'm praying for it. I'm seeking that. I'm saying that I want that. Similarly, what you should hear. So you have got the internet capacity, internet connection. Everybody has internet now. It's part of life. But then, how do you use your internet? It's just like asking the question, how do you use your fire? Do you use fire for cooking in the kitchen, or do you let the fire burn in your drawing room? So it will simply finish off your house. Whole thing will be put into flames. Likewise, I would say all scientific discoveries have to be scrutinized as to whether they are helpful to us in building up our inner character. So the character like the capacity of being satisfied, capacity of being compassionate, capacity of being, uh, a sense of unselfish, unconditional service to others. Can we develop this? In the Viveka Chudamani, in the 80th verse of the Viveka Chudamani, Acharya Shankara speaks of this. He says, a person who wants spiritual development He must not go into too much of material and consumeristic life of thinking on one side. And the second side, he must develop these higher virtues. We have the capacity, we have the choice, we can develop that. So, character building will happen at a very, very personal level. Somebody said, character building is not, character is not what you are publicly visible. That could be your reputation, that could be your public image. Character is when nobody is observing you, nobody is having an eye on you. At that time, what kind of thoughts, what kind of actions? I would add it to that. What kind of movies are you seeing on YouTube? What kind of things you're watching or listening to? Because that shows your interest. And that interest comes from the type of character that we have. It is a double-edged thing. It builds up our character and it also makes us seek certain things. So Swami Vivekananda gave certain key, things to be developed in life. Like he said, develop strength, strength of body, strength of mind. He said, always have faith in yourself. I said he makes a beautiful statement. He says, old religion says that he is an atheist who does not believe in God, but the new religion says that he is an atheist who does not believe in himself. So have faith in yourself. Why you bring down your self-esteem and self-faith? Have faith in your capacities, your self-worth. That will solve many, many issues of life. Similarly, he was a prophet of service. He said, we are getting so much from the society. We must give back something to the society. And today you have the CSR model in the management area. CSR, corporate social responsibility. That's a very good thing, 2% of the total income. Because if a company has become successful, it is because the society has contributed to it. So we must do something for the society. If there were no roads, if there was no electricity supply, if there were no workers, if there were none of these infrastructural thing and human capital, how can we develop our success? We can become successful. So that's why this idea Swami Vivekananda gave more than 125 years back. He said, I hold every man a traitor who, having been educated to the cost of others, does not pay attention to their well-being. So these are a few thoughts from Swamiji, which we can all cogitate upon. Today we are celebrating his birthday. So celebrating birthday should not only mean, of course, it's very important that we should listen to some talk, we focus on his ideas, but it should not end there. It should continue. We must take up his books. His books are available online. All his literature is available online. So authentically, if you can read his complete works, if it is too big, just take up his Karma Yoga lectures. 8 lectures are there, or his letters, any of these books, and his biography. So on this day, I think we should make a resolve that as we have heard these thoughts, we should take it forward and uh, try to read those things and carry with us. We will find a new direction, a healthy direction for our life. It will lead to a personal growth as well as social peace. You can feel it as you put them into practice. So this is how I would rather close my talk by saying that it has been a wonderful time that I spent with you. And I pray and I wish that may Swamiji's blessings be upon all of us and all of us lead a life of fulfillment, a life of healthy direction and contribute to our personal growth as well as our national growth. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Yeah. So thank you, Maharaj, for that enlightening talk. So if there are any questions from students or those who are attending, please go ahead and ask. So generally there is some inertia for questions. So maybe I will ask.
Yes.
I will start. So maybe we see in young people, especially with the advent of social media and getting engaged in social media, they are very concerned about number of likes and whole. So how they should engage with social media, because it seems like it is also a useful tool, but too much engagement of people in social media also creates psychological issues in some. People. So what you would say about
You're right. We should be very careful about it. When you make your happiness dependent on the likes people have to whatever you have posted on the social media, you have as if, mortgaged your happiness. You have surrendered your happiness to others. If they say yes, then you feel happy. And if they don't like it or they dislike it, you feel, oh, I am nowhere. Why should we do that? Swami Vivekananda said, live like a master. Live like a master. So I will do the right thing. I don't care if people like it or people don't like it. And moreover, um, this is seeking attention from others. There's a kind of inner, emptiness that I must find. Others should say good words about me. Then I will feel okay. If others do not say that, I feel as if I have been, put on the verge of depression. Why should I create my own depression? In fact, no depression should come. Depression is the kind of negative thinking and which have become very deep within us. In the West, nearly 40% people or even more are forced to take some kind of drug because of the depression. So is that our ideal when we have the philosophy of self-worth in Vedanta? Why not we follow that?
it?
So it's very important that people should use their Vivek Shakti, power of discrimination. What is right, what is wrong, what is beneficial, and what is just pleasant.
Mm.
So we must make a difference. What is pleasant may not be beneficial.
Mm.
So make a clear understanding of that. So I think by this kind of a thinking, people can learn how to use social media than to be used by social media.
And the thing, especially after the COVID, everything has become online and students are at home. Many students find it hard to manage time, especially when there are, family, they are living in a small place. So
Right.
how do they manage their time, and how do you think that they can, maybe more productive even while remaining away from the watch of their professors?
One thing I feel is very important is building up a healthy routine. That routine helps a lot in self-management and also in controlling the mind. So I rise up. I need not get up at 4 o'clock. At least I should get up by 6:15, 6:30, and spend some time with myself. Right? We have the yoga tradition in our country. There are more than 100 countries where yoga is being practiced. Why not we also take up? So take up your yoga practices in the morning. Then spend some time in meditation. Have some time for your personal reading, deep reading, other than your course reading, and also a little bit of aerobic exercises also will help. Say walking, brisk walking. So this is the physical side, and the other side, we can always find time for a very healthy engagement with others, conversation with others. That also helps a lot. So it's not just in a very superficial, some jokes and some kind of politics only. Some very meaningful discussion with others and full of warmth. That also helps a lot. And above all, we must have some goal. We must keep ourselves busy. It's very important. In the Bhagavad Gita, it comes, Nahi kaschit kshanamapi jatu tishtatya karma krita, which means even for a small second, human beings actually can't be without work. So give a direction to that work. So that work has to be a healthy work. Right? It should lead to my personal growth, and also there should be a balance in life. Too much of entertainment is not good, but no entertainment, too much of seriousness is also not good. Again, in the Bhagavad Gita, you have got a wonderful verse about it. It says, uh, you have the idea of Yuktahar Viharasya, Yukta Swapnavabodhasya Yogo Bhavati Dukkha. So it should be in the form of that I must have a system of making myself a very balanced and moderate approach to life. I think it should help us. It should help us.
Are there any other questions from any student? Okay, so if there are no further questions, I will just check if Professor Ahuja is still there. I'm not sure. I think he might have left. So yeah, so I will then conclude this meeting by thanking Swamiji, and maybe we'll conclude with the last shloka. Let me do that. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So thank you, Maharaj, for joining.
Okay, Ashish.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Namaste to all.